White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt taking questions live and in real time from reporters inside the White House press briefing. Let's listen in.
To the president tonight, and everything he is saying will be backed by facts and by evidence that will be provided this evening. And again, Garrett, I think all Americans, Democrat, Republican, should agree that we are the greatest country in the history of the world. We should have the safest and most secure elections in the history of the world. And what the president will be speaking about tonight will show you that perhaps that is not the case, and we need to make some adjustments moving forward, including the Save America Act, as Rachel pointed out, is a key legislative priority for this president on Capitol Hill, and he wants to see all senators and members of Congress voting in favor of the Save America Act because it's crucially important as we move forward. Aisha.
Hi, Caroline. Welcome back. And
Thank you.
I'm assuming the pink is for your baby girl.
You know, I didn't think that, but I guess it is now. Thank you.
Yeah. We've talked a little bit about what the president might say tonight, but the other question is, who is running the teleprompter tonight after this report that the other guy is now under investigation for making money off of reading the president's speech?
Obviously, I'm aware of the report. The president is too. I spoke with him about it. He believes it's deeply unfortunate and, frankly, a disgrace. And the individual that was cited in that report is complying with the CFTC but has been put on paid administrative leave. So there will be a teleprompter operator tonight, of course, but it will not be the one, unfortunately, in that story.
One more on Iran. The Vice President, J.D. Vance, went on this podcast with Joe Rogan yesterday, talked about Israel, in which he said that there are some people within their system that we know beyond a shadow of a doubt who are manipulating and trying to change American public opinion to keep the war going on indefinitely. Does the president agree with that statement?
I think the president would certainly agree that, yes, foreign countries certainly do try to persuade American public opinion. There's no doubt about that. I think it's just a basic fact. Ed.
Good to see you, Caroline. Following up on the teleprompter and then one on tonight's speech, what steps is the White House taking to ensure something like that doesn't happen again?
Well, the White House has extremely strict ethical guidelines with respect to issues like this, and as I just told you, this individual will no longer be here. He'll be on paid administrative leave. I'm sorry, without pay. The administrative leave is unpaid, to be very clear. That was a decision by the president, so I think that speaks for itself.
On the concerns about the election, will the president accept the results of November's elections?
Look, Ed, you should tune into the president's speech tonight before you jump ahead to conclusions about what's actually in the speech. Again, I've seen a lot of reporting and misreporting about what the president will say. We hope CBS will take the speech, and all Americans should take it.
Okay, but I'm not presuming anything. I'm just asking will he accept the results.
Caroline, two questions on the Trump account. First, following the birthright citizenship case, is there concern that babies that are born to illegal immigrants here in the United States are not excluded from these accounts? And also, since the $1,000 per child from the Treasury seeds these accounts, can you assuage concerns from those who feel this is wealth redistribution?
I would certainly not describe it as that. As you know, this was an incredible private-public partnership. We had incredibly generous Americans, Michael Dell, and many others who contributed to the fund for the Trump accounts. So that money will then be passed along to America's children, which I think is a great thing that all Americans from all political persuasions can agree upon. With respect to your question on birthright citizenship, I think the president has made his view and the White House has made our view on this case quite clear. We're going to continue to move forward to work with Congress, hopefully in the future, to remedy this problem in our country and to ensure that we cannot have this scam continuing where you have foreigners from all around the world traveling to our country to give birth to babies who are then given the greatest privilege on the face of the planet, American citizenship. That's not how our founding fathers intended this country to work or to operate, and the administration is committed to finding solutions to remedy that.
Do they have access to the Trump accounts, those are children of those illegal aliens?
That's not something I've discussed directly with the president, so I don't want to speak out of turn on that. As you know, Carrie, all American citizen children are able to access the Trump accounts as it stands right now. Sure, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mark Stone from Sky News. Can I switch to Iran, please?
Sure.
And specifically, the Manab school attack. 120 children dead, 26 of their teachers. A Sky News investigation released today points to all this being a tragic mistake by America, by the US military. So could you explain, please, why the president is repeatedly saying it wasn't America, when he hasn't actually, he says also that he hasn't even seen the report.
I can't speak to the Sky News investigation respectfully because I have not read it. All I can speak to is what the president has said as I speak on his behalf, and the investigation continues, and we would defer you to the Department of War for further questions on it.
I'm following up, if I may.
Sure.
I just want to
My answer is
understand.
not going to change.
I just want to understand why he consistently says it wasn't us, we didn't do this, when all the evidence and indeed the preliminary report, and we've spoken to a military insider who says this was human error.
Well, that's the president's opinion, and at the very same time, he has said the Department of War is investigating the matter, and we would defer you to them for any questions with respect to the investigation, which obviously has not been released yet. I would defer you to them for further questions on it. But there's been, I think the president feels that way because he knows that our military always acts in good faith and absolutely never targets civilians or children, unlike the other side of this conflict, Iran, who is well known for killing women and children and innocent people in their country for a very long time. So you should focus on that in your reporting. Danny.
Thanks, Caroline. Welcome back. Another World Cup question, much as it pains me. President Trump had some harsh words for Spain at the NATO summit last week about their spending. Does that mean he's going to be supporting Argentina Sunday?
Danny, it is a really good question, and I'm disappointed in myself for not asking the president before I came out here, knowing you would probably ask. I haven't talked to him about it, but we'll get you an answer on that. You're welcome to ask him yourself at some point before the game. I'm sure you'll see him, and I'm sure he'll have a fun answer for you on it. Sure, in the middle. Go ahead. Sure, Jasmine, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. Welcome back.
Thanks.
Back on the teleprompter issue, Notice reported earlier this year that Kalshi was inaccessible on the Wi-Fi that journalists here at the White House have access to. Are staffers back in the West Wing and other parts of the EOB, et cetera, do they have access to Kalshi and Polymarket on their Wi-Fi?
On our work computers?
Yeah.
Honestly, I've never tried, so I don't know. But I'm happy to go try and get you an answer on that.
Another question, Caroline.
In the back, Reagan. Sure. Jasmine, go ahead, and then Reagan. Go.
Are there any other White House staffers or people within the administration who are suspected of also placing bets on Kalshi or Polymarket or other things with some of this privileged information?
Not to my knowledge, not that I've been made aware of. And as you saw, I think this played out exactly how it should. Kalshi notified the CFTC of suspicious activity. They investigated that, identified the individual, and he will now no longer be working at the White House. So I think that answers all the questions on this matter. Reagan.
Thank you, Caroline. I have a question for you on the Save America Act and
Sure.
Senator Graham, and then a quick question on Iran.
Sure.
Trump said in one of his final conversations with the late Senator Graham that he was talking about the Save America Act and that he felt like they were in a great position with it. Do you anticipate that the Senate is going to be more aggressive to push the Save America Act in light of the fact that it was so important to Senator Graham so close to his death?
Sure. Well, since I haven't had the opportunity, let me just express my sincere condolences to Senator Graham's staff and his family. He was beloved by so many here at the White House, especially the president, and I know that the news of his sudden passing was just tragic to all of us, especially the president, who considered him a dear friend. The Save America Act, as I said, Reagan, is of vital importance to this president, and he wants to see it move forward. I understand that Capitol Hill and Speaker Johnson are moving forward with attaching as many elements of the Save America Act as possible to the Budget Reconciliation 3.0. Here we go. The president is supportive of that process, and he hopes that Republicans will vote for this important piece of legislation. The Budget Reconciliation bill not only will address the Save America Act, but also ensure important aid for our farmers and our war fighters, which the president supports as well. Brian.
Thank you, Caroline. Welcome back.
Thank you.
On the Kalshi situation, I have just a few questions on that.
Sure.
This individual has been accused of making trades around the president's speeches for months. I mean, this has been going on since at least earlier this year, maybe even before that. Did the White House counsel have any awareness that this was going on with this individual? And if not,
No.
So if no, then why not? Was there any sort of plan in place to try to figure this out, to see if anyone else is doing this, or to track future people from see if they're making these types of bets in the White House? Any discussions around that?
Look, there are very strict ethical guidelines here at the White House that explicitly state not to do this, and the White House counsel's office makes that clear to all of us who sign up to work in government on behalf of the president. So I think there has been a plan in place. This individual unfortunately violated the plan, and therefore he's paying the consequences for it. I don't know why there's further questions
I
on
just want to follow on this, but then doesn't that leave open the possibility, even though there are the rules, I mean, there's no disputing there are strict rules on this, but if there are no mechanisms in place, and then I'm not saying that there are, there should and should not be, but if there are none in place to try to track this happening inside the White House and inside the executive branch of the government, doesn't that leave open a possibility for this to keep happening or happening again, and these result people making bets like this inside the administration?
Again, there are very strict ethical requirements required by all staffers and officials here at the White House, and if they are violated, people will pay consequences for that, as you're seeing with this case. Libby. Thank you.
I have a question about Senator McConnell, but first on Iran. President Trump has now greenlit strikes on Iran for nearly every day this week. Does the White House describe negotiations more at a standstill or essentially completely over?
Well, I've spoken with the president about this as recently as an hour ago. Iran very much continues to talk to the United States of America and express that they want to make a deal with us because they are suffering devastating blows on behalf of our United States military. The reason, and this is important for the American people to understand, the reason for the recent strikes over the course of the last several days is because Iran violated the Memorandum of Understanding that we struck with them. Specifically, in the Memorandum of Understanding that they signed, they were not to fire on commercial vessels moving through the Strait of Hormuz. And unfortunately, they have made the tragic decision for them to do that. And President Trump is not going to sit by and allow these active acts of terrorism to take place in the Strait without ensuring Iran pays consequences for that, and that's what we are witnessing right now.
Talk to him about this within the last hour. I mean, does he essentially seem fed up with these negotiations? And can you explain why the American people should think that a deal with Iran would even be worthwhile at this point, given the fact that they broke it already?
Well, look at how bad they are behaving. It just proves the president's initial point for launching Operation Epic Fury in the first place. Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. That's why he launched Operation Epic Fury. They have suffered devastating blows to their military and their economy as a result. The president is always open and willing to diplomacy. He is the peace through strength president after all. After Operation Epic Fury, the conclusion of it, we did move forward into a diplomatic phase, if you will, but unfortunately Iran has since violated that. They have expressed they still want to make a deal to the president. We're talking to them, but again, the president is not going to allow them to fire on ships in the Strait without paying a consequence for that. And I think just one more point, I think throughout this entire endeavor, the president has proved not just to Iran, but to the entire world that we can hit Iran anytime, anywhere, any place, and their ability to defend themselves has been essentially wiped out because of this president and Operation Epic Fury in the first place. Sure. Lena, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Two questions for you. If I can read two comments, one made by President Trump and one made by the Vice President on Iran. President Trump recently said, as far as I'm concerned, it's just a waste of time dealing with them. They're liars. There's something wrong with them. They are cuckoo. They are scum, sick people, vicious, violent people. And then Vice President Vance went on Joe Rogan last night and he said, I'm very frustrated by the Americans and frankly by people in other countries who say you cannot negotiate with the Iranians. So your response to these contradictions, because I think you can understand how that's confusing for Americans with this mixed messaging. And then second question for you, at least 6 Americans are still detained in Iran. Mm-hmm. Will President Trump make this conditional, a point of condition in continuing these conversations with the country as well as political prisoners and also people that are still being executed in Iran to this day?
Sure. To your second question, I'll never create a red line or a condition on behalf of the president without his blessing. I haven't heard him say that, but obviously ensuring the return of Americans wrongfully detained or held hostage all over this world remains a priority for him, and he has done so in a tremendous way over the course of the last year and a half. Americans from all over the world have returned home thanks to this president and the efforts of his national security team. To your first question about the comments between the president and the vice president, respectfully, I do think you're taking comments from different times throughout this conflict and kind of asking me if these are contradictory of each other. I can tell you the president, vice president are on the exact same page about where we are right now in this conflict. And the fact that you do see elements of what's remaining in the Iranian regime that are more willing to make a deal, and then other elements who are not so maybe willing to make a deal, shows that Operation Epic Fury was incredibly effective because we neutered their ability to communicate with one another, and they are a fragmented system. They are not the once very strong, powerful terrorist state that they were before this operation, which was one of the ultimate goals. So we'll continue to work through the process, and as I said, the president will hold them accountable when they turn their back on the words that they state to the United States, but he is always open to diplomacy at the very same time.
Thank you, Caroline.
Sure.
Regarding the president's speech tonight, he's been in office over 540 days now. If what he says is tonight is backed up by evidence, why hasn't anyone been charged?
Well, he hasn't revealed it yet. He hasn't declassified the documents yet, and you will see what he says tonight, and then we'll move forward appropriately from there.
Tonight from the Justice Department?
I don't speak on behalf of the Justice Department, Caitlin, you know that. Rachel.
By evidence, will there be charges?
You'll have to ask the Justice Department. I don't charge people. I just speak on behalf of the president. Rachel.
Thanks, Caroline. Welcome back. Just a point of clarification really quick. On the staffer who is accused of profiting off of the president's speeches, you said he'll no longer be working here. Is he on administrative leave, or is he going to be fired after that's over?
He's on unpaid administrative leave right now.
Okay. And just to follow up on the president's speech tonight, I mean, we've been talking to a lot of Republicans over on Capitol Hill. They have said that focusing on the economy is the right way to go ahead of the midterm elections. They believe that's what voters care most about. What does the president say to Republicans who think that focusing on the 2020 election, election integrity, all of these issues right now is not the right approach so close to the election?
Well, again, you guys have not heard the speech yet, so I would digress with the criticism until you actually hear what the president is going to say and what he's going to say when he addresses the American public. I would also add again that the administration, and especially this president, are able to walk and chew gum at the same time and tackle a number of issues on a number of different subjects every single day. We see that president do that, working around the clock on foreign policy, on domestic policy, all of the time. You all report on it, you have to keep up with it, so I think you can agree with me on that point. And I would also add the president will continue to be traveling all around the country to talk about the economy. We were just in Pennsylvania a couple weeks ago touring a Mack truck facility, which has been greatly strengthened and enriched because of this president's economic policies over the last year and a half, and he loves doing that, and he will continue to do so. Jennifer, go ahead.
We have seen with the increased community strikes a real decrease in traffic through commercial traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. What is the U.S. doing right now to facilitate flows through the Strait of Hormuz and preemptively address the risk that Houthis will actually choke off the Red Sea oil route and that prices will increase further before November?
Sure. Well, two separate questions. First, let me address what's happening in the Strait right now. We know that there is a blockade of ships directed by the president for ships entering and departing Iranian ports only. This has been fully implemented and is in full force. This blockade was reimposed due to Iran's inability to honor their agreement with the United States of America. More than 10,000 U.S. sailors, Marines, and airmen, along with 2 aircraft carriers and more than 20 warships and dozens of aircraft, are executing the blockade mission as we speak. And during the first 24 hours of the blockade, U.S. CENTCOM has redirected 2 compliant commercial vessels and disabled 1 non-compliant vessel. So look, the Strait is open for ships that are not traveling to and from Iranian ports specifically, and the U.S. Navy is there to ensure that can take place. With respect to gas prices, as you know, the price of oil right now is approximately $80 a barrel, maybe a little less. Before I came out here, that's what it was at. Gas prices are down approximately 60 cents a gallon off the peak of this conflict, and the president was honest with the American people from the beginning. There may be temporary disruptions in the oil market, but what we haven't seen is what all of the naysayers said, that there would be massive increases in the price of oil that so many warned about. And that's in large part because of the president's domestic energy policies here at home to revamp our domestic production here, but also the administration has taken many swift actions to mitigate these temporary disruptions. As you know, we've released oil through our SPR, the Jones Act waiver, which has been incredibly effective, fuel environmental waivers. We also, the president signed the Defense Production Act to restart California oil production. So all of these his very swift and mighty actions on behalf of this administration have led to a rather stable oil market, and the president will continue to do all he can to ensure prices come down, stay stable for the American people and the American consumer until the end of this conflict. And ultimately, I think Americans should keep in mind why we're doing this in the first place, to ensure that Iran, a terror state, can never obtain a nuclear weapon. Dasha, go ahead.
Nice to see you back.
You too.
2 questions, one on tonight and one on immigration. It strikes me listening to the conversation in this room about Iran, given the questions that folks on both sides of the aisle have about strategy and endgame, given that the United States has intensified strikes on Iran, typically in a time of conflict, when the president gives an address to the nation, you would expect him to address this conflict. Number one, will he talk about Iran, and why is that not the major topic of his speech? Does he believe that the SAVE Act and the 2020 election integrity are more important right now?
Well, no, it's not a matter of importance. It's just a matter of timing. The president will be making a very important announcement with respect to the integrity of our elections. However, it is also very possible at the top of the speech he will mention the current situation with Iran and also the economy as well. As you all know, President Trump is a man of his own word, and he sometimes is thinking about these things up until he walks out. But we have had conversations about him addressing a range of topics, and that could very well be possible tonight. Again, this is all more reason for all of you to carry the speech live and for the American people to tune in tonight so they can hear directly from the the president and draw their own conclusions.
Caroline,
go ahead.
Caroline, sorry, I just wanted to add the immigration question real quick.
Sure,
Caroline,
go ahead.
Sorry. 3 men were killed in ICE encounters in less than a week. As a result, DHS announced that it would end vehicle stops, and then President Trump urged them to change their position. Can you confirm whether vehicle stops are back on, and is the administration doing anything more to prevent these kinds of deaths, maybe accelerating distribution of body cameras which weren't present in this case?
So a couple of things. Vehicle stops are continuing. Verbal guidance has been given to all field offices across the country by the Department of Homeland Security. The President and the Secretary of Homeland Security are on the same page that vehicle stops are a necessary tool that ICE agents need in order to continue their deportation campaign of the worst illegal alien criminals from our country. With respect to body cameras, I know there's been some questions about that in recent days. Over half of all ICE field offices now do have body cameras, and the remainder of the field offices are expected within 60 days. It's been a slower rollout than we would have hoped, but that's because of the Democrats' decision to shut down DHS for several weeks. So we expect to fully execute on the promise of body cams to all field offices across the country very soon. Karen.
On the parasite outbreak related to
Yes.
produce, can you give an update on the administration's response to this? Are there federal officials on the ground in the hardest hit states right now doing any testing of production facilities or farms to try to figure out where this outbreak has started?
Sure. Well, what I can tell you, having been back at the White House for just a couple of short weeks, I've been in meetings on this very topic, and I can tell you the White House is closely monitoring the situation, has a handle on the situation. We're committed to providing the CDC and the FDA the resources that they need, and we urge all Americans to follow CDC guidance on properly washing and cooking raw ingredients to prevent this foodborne illness. As you know, there has been an unusually high number of cases. There are typically thousands of cases of this outbreak every year, but there has been an unusually higher number, and that's why we're working with the FDA and other partners at the federal, state, and local level to increase detection methods, provide the guidance, and then also, most importantly, trace the outbreak back to its original source, which we are currently in the process of doing.
Lack of permanent leadership at the CDC and FDA and any funding cuts, has that slowed the response to figure out where this outbreak has started?
No, we've talked to the CDC and FDA specifically about that, and not at all. They have the resources they need to make sure that Americans are fully informed and protected from this illness during this time.
Caroline, please. Caroline, welcome back.
Thanks.
Last year, the administration signed a critical minerals deal, mining deal with Kazakhstan for a little-known U.S. company. It was an agreement that President Trump and Howard Lutnick got tentative approval for with Kazakhstan's president in September. 6 days before the deal was signed, which was in November, the president's older sons with other partners took a 20% investment in a company related to the deal. What did the president know about his son's involvement in this arrangement, and when did he find out about it?
From my understanding, Maggie, nothing. I've spoken to the president and his family about this. They would absolutely never do anything that would put the president in a place of a conflict of interest. And we have timelines to give you and to provide you, which we did to the news media at the time when this story broke, to prove that very point that I just made.
Sorry, just one second. So the president did not learn about it until it was in the media? That was when he found out?
That's my understanding of the matter, yes.
Caroline.
Go ahead.
Thank you very
Carrie, I'll
much.
go to you after. Just
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Me? Okay.
Why don't we just...
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Kurdi.
Starting in the
very,
back.
very welcome back.
Okay. Thank you.
Yesterday, Iran launched a drone attack against U.S. facilities in Erbil, threatening American personnel and the Kurdistan region, one of the American closest partners in the Middle East. What is your message to those responsible? And are you staying with your loyal ally in the Middle East and at least helping them to defend itself?
Who launched the attacks? You're saying
Iran,
Yes,
Kurdistan
of course.
region.
Well, I think I've addressed that previously in saying that Iran has unfortunately shown to violate the word that they struck with the President of the United States. They're paying consequences for that in the strikes that the President has authorized in the recent days.
Thank you, Caroline. You were with the President in Ankara for the NATO summit, and there Ukraine was one of
I was not, actually.
Oh, you were not. Okay, yeah, but the issue of Ukraine was one of the most important topics there, and the situation is escalating between the two sides in these days, but there are still efforts. Can you give us more information about where we are and how the local power breakers, including Turkey, are involving in order to solve the problem?
Sure. I'll check with the National Security Council and get back to you on that with more specific guidance. What I can tell you is I know the President greatly enjoyed his visit to Turkey and not just his participation in the NATO summit, where he applauded the United States for getting our NATO allies to step up and pay their fair share for our defense, but also he greatly enjoyed his time with President Erdogan in Turkey and appreciates the bilateral relationship between our two countries. Kara.
Caroline, welcome back.
Thanks.
Contrary to what the mainstream media is reporting, Americans that I speak to care deeply about election integrity.
This is true.
Why do you think the mainstream media is so fearful of tonight's speech and anything to do with election interference? And why are they attempting to discredit President Trump's speech before they even heard it? And lastly, what's your message to AOC, who is asking for President Trump, the mainstream media, to actually censor the sitting president's speech tonight?
Yeah, I think that the mainstream media should air the president's speech and allow the American people to draw their own conclusions from it. Again, I think it's important that the American public hears directly from the President of the United States on a topic that, to your point, is very near and dear to the hearts of many Americans across the country, the integrity of our elections. This should be a nonpartisan, non-controversial issue, and I think you'll hear the President talk about that tonight. So we'll see you then. Thank you.
Who is telling the President?
All right, you have been watching live here on CBS News 24/7. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt back from maternity leave, addressing a wide range of topics from reporters there. Of course, the big topic, what President Trump will say tonight when he addresses the nation, reportedly on election integrity and alleged involvement by the Chinese. So let's go to CBS News political reporter Zach Hudak. He's been watching all of this from Washington. So Zach, we cut into that news conference a little bit of the way in. What else was revealed today?
Well, Reed, we're still kind of functioning in this realm of we know the general topic. We know he's going to focus on China's obtaining of some of that voter information. But Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt really kept it very guarded here, as have our sources. The one takeaway that I thought was significant on this topic is that there were a few questions, and our own Ed O'Keefe really pushed her on this, on the idea that he keeps claiming that any election that he doesn't win was lost, and the question of why are we still relitigating this? And the press secretary basically said, you guys are reading into this wrong. Wait until you see what he has to say. So she seems to be indicating that whatever we're going to hear tonight might be a little bit more measured than what we've come to expect from President Trump when he talks about election security and things like that. So I think the biggest takeaway is that the White House is indicating, don't get too worked up about this. This is going to be a major announcement, but maybe not as major as us in the media have been expecting it to be.
Well, and to be fair, we in the media have heard the president say that the announcement would be very big. And, you know, when you start to invoke allegations that China could have been involved in influencing voter data, it is a big deal. You mentioned the last time we talked about voter data. Does that mean votes or information leading up to your average American walking into that polling booth?
We think that this would be the actual voter files and things more along those lines. The laws differ on that from state to state. There are some states where you can legally obtain that data, where it's legally available, actually. So the extent of how nefarious that would have been, we don't know yet. There is a world where China could be trying to use that data in order to conduct their own public polling on where U.S. citizens stand on a certain issue, on a issue pertaining to China, for instance. So I think there are some scenarios where it's maybe a little bit less nefarious, but you are right to point out, I mean, I think for all of us, we hear foreign interference, and that's very alarming. And we've heard repeatedly that from this administration, from previous ones, that countries do attempt to meddle in our elections, but I think the reality is we have pretty good systems to prevent that, and our intelligence services do a good job of combating that. I think the question we're all waiting to hear was, did things slip through that could have, had a major impact? We have yet to hear, over the past 5.5 years, as the president has put forth several theories, depending on which state, about why he was not the victor in 2020. There has yet to be one that really holds water. So this would be a first. But you're right. I mean, the potential of foreign interference, and particularly from China, who has become so much stronger in the past 2 decades and has become a major prime rival of the United States.
You know, anytime an allegation is made, whether it's small potatoes or something huge like this, of course, what follows is making the case to prove the allegation. The president, and again, to Karoline Leavitt's point, we don't know. We don't know what he's going to say, but we can assume, can't we, that he will actually make the case. And then I guess the next step to that would be proposing solutions or accountability, no?
That's right, Reed. And we know that he's been trying to pass his voting security bill, which would in some ways federalize elections. So there's a lot of hesitation to move forward with that on Capitol Hill. Historically, the states have always run all of our elections. I think there's pretty much 100% chance the president will be tying the topic of this alleged China interference to that in order to say, look, those of you in Congress who are dragging your feet on my bill, don't do that anymore, because this is what is at stake here. The president has said repeatedly that elections have been stolen from him. So this is him really laying his cards out for Republicans in Congress to apply as much pressure on them as possible. And I'm sure he's thinking about the reality that his base will be watching this speech very closely and listening intently. I think his base is the one part of the country that has consistently believed that he won the 2020 election, or at least a chunk of it. So the members of Congress representing his base will have to go home and hear from their constituents that, the president has shown evidence of the need for this bill. Why are you not moving forward on it? So there's definitely a political motive in all of this, and the president, is, if nothing else, extremely savvy at sort of functioning as a whip for Congress and applying pressure to those dissenting members. So I'm sure we can expect that this evening.
As we approach the midterm elections, Zach Hudak in Washington, thank you so much.